All right, good morning, everyone. This is Mark Wilson, and I'm joined today with Keith Young. He is the Adult Rowing Director at Lake County Rowing Association over in Clermont, Florida. And I live in DeLand, Florida, and we are actually only about 35, 40 miles apart, max, I would say. So very much a Central Florida show today. We appreciate you guys listening, and thanks, Keith, for joining us today.
Hey, Mark, good to see you. Thanks a lot for having me.
Well, last time we talked, we were kind of right in the beginning of this whole pandemic thing, or we're in the middle of this beginning part of the summer, I guess, and it was kind of, it was pretty dire, especially with rowing clubs being closed or very limited amount of access and opportunities and so on. So now we're a couple months later, and Florida especially is opening up a little bit more maybe than some other parts of the country, but rowing as well is growing and is getting back to nothing close to normal, but we are seeing people on the water. What's going on over there in Clermont now over the last month or so? How are things looking?
Well, it's, as you and I have discussed before, sometimes the situation is changing weekly. It's funny, I was chatting with my wife, who's a school teacher, and she's almost at the point of no longer making formal lesson plans because whatever she puts out there a week or two later, it's different.
So I can imagine that's very similar for rowing coaches. You'd like to have a very systematic, progressive kind of structure, and that may be a little difficult right now, I'm guessing.
Well, and I think it's important. There's been times where I've generated systematic plans to my membership of things that we're trying to do, so that they know I'm planning for the best, and then I just tend to follow it up a week later or 2 weeks later with some sort of apology and kind of a tongue-in-cheek, I'm sorry, I'm not well qualified as your rowing coach during a global pandemic, and I do my best. So I think they appreciate that we're trying to do as much as possible that's normal, but they're having to adapt, and everybody kind of smiles and says we're going to do the best we can. So
yeah. Now I know that you guys in the past have been probably more sweep centric. Would that be appropriate? And so now all of us around the country are certainly becoming more sculling centric. What have you been able to do locally to help your members still feel like they're getting programming, getting coaching and so on, and still be on the water? What have you been able to do?
Well, we didn't have and don't have a very large sculling fleet with regards to singles, which was what we had to start with to get back on the water for social distancing purposes. So we've taken the full spectrum from a 40-year-old wooden frame with traditional decking, lightweight women's single, and had custom pontoons put on it, to a Little River Marine wreck single and things in between. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. We've rolled out we're more than double the number of practices that we were doing before, just to be able to put people on the water. Try to create some Zoom meetings to try to get people to meet each other, bring out some of the more experienced people to help out when we would do learn to rows. Obviously, it's a little challenging to really get to know people when you can't see if they're even smiling at you. So we did that. We don't do nearly as much of the virtual stuff, the Zoom stuff, because people can come. We've offered some ergometer sessions for members as well, because we have to share the same equipment with our youth. So since we're not masters only, we have a middle school program and we have a youth program. So a lot of times our masters during the week are rowing in the dark. I had some very generous donations to buy a considerable large kit, a number of bow and stern lights, safety lights.
Right.
And then even on the weekends, we're kind of packed in the mornings to try to get everybody out on the water. So lots of lots of adapting continuously.
Yeah,
So.
I think this has been the year of adaptations. I think people around the country, in Florida and Massachusetts and West Coast, Oregon, Washington, every place people row, it's all about that adaptation and figuring out what's best for them locally and for their membership locally. So, what kind of feedback has your membership been giving you as a director or your board as an organization? How are they handling it with knowing that we're in a situation that we are in?
I think the best thing starts with just honesty. I mean, you can't try to make the situation other than what it is. So just telling people, I wish I could shake your hand, or, welcome to our club. I'm sorry, we got to be a little bit more distant. Whatever those things are, rehearsing sanitization protocols, things like that, trying to build some routine, and probably erring a little bit more on the side of fun and get out on the water. There's probably most of us coaches, we watch all kinds of technical videos, we study that stuff endlessly. And yet, if we're just thinking people need to get outside, people need to get out on the water, we are turning our head briefly, not paying attention to get overly technical with people and just let them have fun. And when it comes down to it, just like every business, there's a bottom line. So when you can kind of keep it fun, get them out on the water as much as possible, don't worry about the technical as much. For right now, it's the long game. We're playing the long game. So.
Keith, I think what you just said, keeping it fun, is probably the most important thing that any coach and any program administrator can do right now. I think that's absolutely imperative, really, to what we're all doing. Because at the end of the day, what this is recreation, and it should be just that. It should be fun. It should be something that people want to come back tomorrow for, or the next day for, or whatever. And if it's too serious and if it's too much of a hassle, then it's going to become not fun really fast. So I think a lot of times what I've been hearing is that people are trying to do exactly what you've said. Keep the protocols appropriate, and keep it simple, streamlined, I guess is the right word. But then at the end of the day, get out on the water and have some fun, because there's really no better physical distancing exercise than being out in the middle of the lake. You're a long way from a lot of other people with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And yet part of it too, especially with adults and even with youth, is there's a relationship component. And that has been a big struggle. You think about all the stories that go back even when we were rowing, adult beverages and beer and hanging out with each other are kind of woven into the fabric of rowing. And that has been removed. So trying to find other ways, I reach out to certain members who will then target certain brand new rowers to send them texts or send them something encouraging, and so I'm kind of in the background trying to create those relationships that I would normally be able to get very easily, because they're, like I said, hanging out, having a drink or something like that. Practice.
And does your boathouse or your organization have rules about you come, you do, you leave kind of thing? Or is it, can people, you're in a beautiful park setting there over in Clermont. I've been to the boathouse. It's a gorgeous location. Can people choose to, at the end of an evening, sit around distant and hang out, or is that not really encouraged?
Well, we don't really have anything for them. I guess if they snuck a 6-pack of beer in their trunk, I suppose they could hang out, but we don't really have, our boathouse is not really set up like that. So, but there are some really nice little, we're just a stone's throw from some nice restaurants and pubs in downtown Clermont. And we've got one place that's kind of our watering hole.
Yeah.
So they can do that if they choose, but we're not really set up like some of the clubs with a dance floor and a tap and all that kind of good
Yeah,
stuff.
but you're in Florida, so you got the outside. That's even better than a dance floor. So
There
I
you go.
understand completely the hardship, because rowing, and like any sport, but I think rowing really is something where you are looking for that social connection within the recreation. And I think that's one of the neat things about masters rowing. We talk about it all the time, is that anybody can row. So you really do get a very wide range of personalities, of backgrounds, of professional, types, and not, whatever the background of the individual that comes out to row, and especially in a community setting like yours, is very, very wide. So then those relationships can be really fun to see develop, because many people from various backgrounds can get together and really enjoy each other. So that's difficult right now. I think that's hard for the masters rower as well as it's hard for the juniors rower as well. So it's certainly challenging.
Well, we've rolled out recently, just within the last week, working with the city and our board, and feedback from members on some protocols that allow us to go into doubles and quads.
Oh, good.
So we've got a mixture that people could stay in singles if they choose. They can go into multi-person boats if they're of the same household. They can choose to go into multi-person boats with people that they select as part of we call a rowing circle or a pod. Which is interesting, because that can create some interpersonal issues sometimes of, I'm not in one person's pod, but somebody else's or whatever. So, and then with our developmental people, whether it's learn to row or just having graduated from it, multi-person boats with people they don't know very well, but everyone is wearing a mask. And given the level of intensity that they're really not yet doing, then it can be okay. My more advanced group, we couldn't go out for doing an hour and a half worth of work out there with masks on. So theirs is a little different. So that's been great. And we're going to see how that goes for a while before we even consider larger sweep boats that would require coxswain. So,
right.
But it's good.
Well, that sounds really good. You've got some options, you've got a little bit of flexibility. And again, it's people's personal choice, I think, at the end of the day, from what I've kind of heard as well. So that's nice that you're giving people an option to be able to do what they're comfortable with. So
well, it definitely ramps up the level of complication of organizing a practice, where you took in skill sets and weight classes. And now you add in, are they a mask? Are they a no mask person? Are they in a circle? Are they a single? And then what boat combinations can keep up with others while you're trying to keep everybody close enough so that people can feel like they're getting quality coaching. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with coaches to make an effective practice. So
sure, I can only imagine. Moving through the fall, we're pretty much at the end of the traditional fall season, which is kind of an interesting time right now. But going into winter, which is an awesome time to be rowing in Florida, looking forward into the future, where do you see things going there in Clermont? Is what's the next phase? And I know you've already talked about it being a week to week kind of thing, but what's your hope as we move forward to the winter, or January and December timeframe?
Well, what I'm doing is in my mind building a training plan that takes us through the spring. For us, there's a spring sprint season in Florida that's a Masters Sprint League, 1,000-meter distance, and it runs from the end of February at a race in Sarasota, the Sarasota Sprints, all the way through the end of July in Daytona Beach at the Halifax Regatta. And so it's about once a month. So my idea is we're building for that. But right now we're doing a lot of LSD.
Right.
Your wife's a runner, so long, slow distance.
Slow distance. Yeah.
Right. and trying to do more video review and conversations, lower rate stuff, and just getting them a little bit more technical, and then kind of phasing on a weekly process of kind of bumping up the rates and bumping up some of the intensity. And I'm actually working on one that I want to drop this weekend that takes us through the balance of the year, so they can see that there's a plan and a progression, with the idea that, hey, we're going to plan for, like I said, as though it were normal, by the fact that we'd be at regatta in February. Will it happen? We're all kind of,
yeah.
But I think that's the best way to give hope, and hope will hopefully cause them to come to practices, continue to work, kind of push through when it seems as though everything's jumbled up and they might not want to be as much of the part of the club. I mean, I know personally, I've had challenges even just with personal exercise and gaining weight that are frustrating to me. And I've got members who are struggling with their businesses. They've got the health of older loved ones, people our age. Their parents are in that at-risk group.
Right.
They've got people in homes that they can't go see. They've got grandchildren that they can't visit in other states. So there's a lot of emotions behind it. So trying to create something where there's some hope for the future as best as possible as I can predict it. So
I think that's really smart. I think this is we've done a couple of these small little interviews on the second half of our pandemic here, and that common thread is already coming through. The rowing is really a small part of what we're doing, and the bigger world is still coming around us. So we have to kind of keep everything in perspective. And it sounds like you're doing a great job of kind of monitoring, what people's real important things are, but then also trying to make rowing fun, but still meaningful as well. So there's always been a lot of people in rowing, and some people just want to get in a boat and splash around, and other people want to get in a boat and really be uber competitive. They want to go off and win national titles and win and go race at the highest level possible. So it's always a challenge as a master's coach to kind of be able to massage that and lever that out, or make it as level as possible as you're dealing with folks. So you've got a lot of challenges, and it's not an easy job. People often have said to me, and I'm sure they said it to you, "Oh, you're a rowing coach. Oh, that's great. What else do you do?" And it's like, well, oh, what do you do? My reply to that is, oh, what do you do? Are you a doctor? Yeah. Well, what else do you do? Is kind of what and your discussion right there, Keith, is a prime example of that kind of mentality. It's more complicated than it looks on the outside. So I hear you, and I'm sure that everybody listening to this hears you, saying that. And I think one of the hopes is that people will kind of, give other coaches some support and or ideas, how to work through things. So
I think any place that there's a repository, whether it's in videos or forums or papers or something like that, to be able to share ideas, because there's no playbook for this. This isn't like we're going back and studying, rowing coaches from 100 years ago. Nobody's been dealing with this quite the same way. So we're kind of all figuring it out on the fly as best as possible, and mitigating risk. That's a tough one too, and being sensitive to that. So
right.
Yeah, it is tough, but we do it because we drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago. We are hook, line, and sinker into this thing called rowing. I don't do the same thing for ballroom dancing because I don't love it the same way,
right.
or at all.
Well, I think we all have our challenges, and I think people like you are making it as positive as an experience as possible, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to turn this this really horrible situation that we're all living in and trying to make it our own, make it as good as we can. And I think that's what, coaches are out there are supposed to do. So it sounds like you're doing your part. So we appreciate that.
Well, Mark, I appreciate you doing this too. I mean, this is needed. We all get that sensation of feeling like we're in it together. That's one of the beauties of rowing, and you kind of making these things happen. I think every coach that has an opportunity to talk about it or to be heard, it gives them some more mojo to keep pressing on for their members. So thank you a lot. I appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So again, this is Keith Young from Lake County Rowing Association over in beautiful Clermont, Florida. And normally I will close, Keith, just saying that Clermont is one of those places where a lot of visiting teams would normally come on a normal year to go and use some of the beautiful water and the resources that are there in Clermont. And I know from my sense here in DeLand, things are not going to be a normal year for visiting teams. But if you are out there hearing this and you want to come down to Florida, I'm sure Keith would love to hear from you if you wanted to come and visit or bring your boat. I'm sure there's some sort of protocol if you want to visit.
Absolutely. I do agree with you. The larger multi-person collegiate situation may be on pause. However, we would love to have even small groups of masters. When we typically have anywhere from groups of 1 to maybe 3 or 4 people who have come down before. But I would love to have a group come down, and maybe they could stay at a nearby hotel and kind of enjoy our sites. We've got a great running trail that's super for biking and running, and so we'd love to see more masters who want to get away from the snow and the cold. We'd love to have you. We can figure all the hygiene stuff out when they get here.
Right. Perfect. Well, I just wanted to put that plug in for you, Keith, and
appreciate it.
That's all great. So again, we'll thank you very much, and I'll sign off now, and we'll see what comes up, and maybe we'll do this another time if we have to, in later in the winter. So we'll see.
I love it, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You, bud.
Bye.